Hey there, my name's Gil Wong, and today I want to tell you a story of artful design, technology in search of the sublime. I'm an associate professor at Stanford University in music and computer science, and I work in that building way in the back of campus there, and that is Stanford's Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics. That's abbreviated Ccrma and is sometimes pronounced Karma. And that's me in my office. What is it that I do? Well, I build things. I design things. I create tools, toys, programming languages for music, musical instruments, VR, AR experiences, as well as artificial intelligence systems with humans in the loop, all in the service of music making, and creativity support. I write a lot of code. I'm a computer scientist by training, and code remains one of my primary tools and instruments. In fact, one of the projects I've been working on for nearly 2 decades now is a music programming language called Chuck. It's open source, it's freely available. I like to joke, and maybe only half joke, that this crashes equally well in all commodity operating systems. So if you like, feel free to give it a try. I also direct SLORC, Stanford Laptop Orchestra, and also I'm the director of Stanford's VR Design Lab at Ccrma. More recently, I wrote a book. It's called Artful Design Technology in Search of the Sublime. Ended up being a 488-page photocomic book about design as a human activity. And the 3 questions the book poses and attempts to address are the following. One is, what is the nature of design? Who designs? And the short answer there, at least in this book, is that we all do. In each in our own way, I think we're all trying to shape the future. And the moment we actually take action and actually shape the world around us with some sense of purpose, well, by the definition of artful design, we are designing. And we really see design as a kind of intrinsically human activity. The next question is, what does it mean to design well? And thirdly, well, in this age of technology and I would say a lot of human uncertainty, what does it mean to design ethically? So I want to go through each of these briefly in turn, and I'll start with a demo. This is Ocarina. This is something I designed almost 13 years ago, and so let me give you a demo. So it runs on my phone, and one plays Ocarina by blowing into the microphone literally at the bottom of the phone. And multi-touch controls pitch. Vibrato is controlled by the tilt of the phone. For example. And you can play little ditties with this. So on and so forth. And this is Ocarina in gameplay mode. Yeah, as you can see, Ocarina is really a combination of designing audio, visual interaction together into a single experience. And one could ask, well, what is this? Is this a toy? Is this an instrument? And I suppose an argument could be made for either, or even both. It's a toy in the sense that this is a playful thing. And it's also, really quite useless, right? This is, at the same time, one could say it is an instrument in the sense that you could learn to get better at it. But that's just one half of Ocarina. There's actually another dimension in the same app that allows you to listen to other people around the world blow into their phones to make music. Who is that playing O Shenandoah from the east coast of the United States? Or Legend of Zelda from Indonesia? Well, the app is designed to not tell you. And the idea is that this is really a kind of anonymous social network based on music. And, if you like what you hear, you could click that love button on the top left, but actually that you can't actually find out how many people loved your performance or snippets that you have on the globe. So it's really a one-way street. And knowing that, the only reason you would click that love button is because you actually just genuinely like it. It doesn't really go anywhere. Yeah, there's a counter in the database that gets ticked, and we do keep track of these things. But by and large, this is not a place to throw something out there and see how many people liked it. It's simply a place for expression. And as a philosopher John Stuart Mill once wrote, eloquence is heard, but poetry is overheard. And I suppose you could think of this as a kind of experience that's designed to be overheard. Now, this is kind of some of the, philosophy that underlie the design of Ocarina. And this might be another one, is this idea that technology should create calm. We'll credit this to Mark Weiser, who was the CTO of Xerox PARC more than 2 decades ago. And this is a remarkable sentiment in the sense that, it's not saying technology is going to solve all our problems or technology is going to create wealth or make life more convenient. It certainly has the power to do all of those. But this is saying, perhaps technology could bring us a kind of inner peace, could somehow integrate with the way we live and make life not more hurried, restless, but actually bring us a kind of calm. At least that's the way I read it. And actually, this is a review left for Ocarina back in 2009 in the App Store. It reads, "And this is my peace on Earth. I'm currently deployed in Iraq, and hell on Earth is an everyday occurrence. The few nights I may have off, I'm deeply engaged in this app, the globe feature that lets you hear everybody else in the world playing is the most calming art I've ever been introduced to. It brings the entire world together without politics or war. It is the exact opposite of my life. Deployed U.S. soldier." As you can imagine, this is, an incredibly humbling thing to see that, something that we built, as a playful, whimsical, useless thing, it seemed to have brought at least a brief moment of peace for someone in a very difficult, chaotic, harrowing situation. And perhaps this is to say that, good design should enable us. It should be useful, but great design does that, but also seeks to understand something about us as humans, who we are, who we want to be, and something about our relationships with our fellow human beings. What if our tools actually could, like art, understood us in this kind of humanistic way? Think about the art that we love, your favorite song, your favorite movie, and how these things just get us, who we are, who we were, and how we relate to others. What if the tools we built with technology similarly strove to afford this kind of understanding? That's the thesis of artful design. That's the question, and I think that is the work. So it's with this kind of thinking and ethos that we actually approach really all of our work, including building instruments in the laptop orchestra, which is actually a collection of people, laptops, and special hemispherical speaker arrays that are meant to keep sound local to the instrument. And really, this is a gesture where we're trying to build new instruments with computers, but also preserve something that we really like about acoustic instruments, which is their sound and sense of presence. If I were to play like a violin or a ukulele in the same room physically as someone else, well, they wouldn't hear the sound naturally through speakers coming, around the room, but they would hear the sound coming from the artifact. And that changes the way you actually listen to music. That changes the way you would write music and engage with it. So it's really this butterfly effect that would emanate from this simple and not so simple design of actually keeping sound local to the instrument. And these speakers, actually, we built these out of IKEA salad bowls back in the day, and they still work. They're still what we use today, some 14 years later. Well, here's just a short snippet, one of, I think, over 300 pieces now that have been played in the laptop orchestra. This is a piece called Twilight. And then there's the VR Design Lab. And I wanted to show you one thing that of many that we've built in this lab. And this is from my PhD student, Kung-Woo Kim. He designed a musical city where actually all the elements in this audiovisual interactive world actually has a kind of a musical function. This is made in Tunity, which is actually Chuck, the programming language, in Unity. And so, it begins in the evening, and the moon starts to come out. And you can actually begin to turn on the lights in the building, so they actually control algorithmic processes for music that generates music. The Ferris wheel controls tempo, so the more you turn it, the faster the music goes. And the amount of lights in these buildings control the density and other musical parameters. There are planes, there are automobiles, and when things really get going, we are going to go to the moon, where there are rabbits making rice cake. And from their concoction comes a musical chord train that will flow through the city. UFOs will come out of the sky. They're not here to hurt anybody, but rather they're here to play music together. Kind of a UFO marimba band. And at the end of the evening, everything peacefully turns off and we're ready for the next day. Now, I don't know about you, but this makes me feel like this is the kind of city, maybe the kind of world I would not mind living in, right? And this is artful design in like a different sense, in a different medium, but it's still this idea of building tools, interactive things, experiences that I think questions, interrogates, and perhaps, I don't know, puts a vision out there for a kind of a best case scenario for how we could live with our technologies. That brings me then to my final question here in this presentation, and really this larger overarching question of artful design, which is, well, design is all about choices. In an age of technology and in human discord, what does it mean to design ethically? Right, that, I think, is the question. One of the overarching questions of our times. In this ethics of shaping technology, well, is that like build things that do no evil? Or is it shape technology to proactively do good? I will note that these two things are not in any way, shape, or form the same thing. Right? Imagine a same person going through life doing no evil versus that same person going through life trying to proactively do good. I think the outcomes would be quite different. But there's actually a third question, which I think is perhaps even more actionable in a sense, and that is to try to answer in all the different ways, in all the different circumstances, how do we want to live with our technologies? I think that may be the actual, ethical and perhaps aesthetic question that we have surrounding technology in our culture and societies. So in artful design, there's this idea that, well, there has to be an artistic leap on the part of the designer that results from seeing and feeling the world at large. Designers are less problem solvers and more artists, philosophers, engineers of useful things that understand us. And to the extent we believe that, then perhaps the way we think about technology, well, they need to evolve, and the ways we educate engineers need to evolve. And that tomorrow's engineer and tomorrow's designer need to be much more than a specialist, but a kind of technological artist, a moral ethical inventor, and a system designer who can contextualize the things they built into the systems for which it's been built. So, and actually in higher education, we'll have this notion of a kind of an I-shaped student. We're like, this is not so good because this represents a kind of a person, a student who's really narrowly focused on just one thing, their discipline. But the world is big. The human world's complex. Life is quirky. So we're like, well, what if we have like a T-shaped student where you have depth, disciplinary depth, but also you have a kind of breadth, right? In artful design, I flesh out this notion of a pie-shaped student, like the letter and number pi, where one of the legs you can think of as disciplinary expertise. For me, for example, that was computer science. And then on the other leg, there's something we might call the domain expertise. For me, that was music, but for someone else, that could easily be public health. But the top, this horizontal bar here, is what I call the aesthetic lens. It's the philosophical, artistic, moral lens that gives broader meaning and context in bridging the two legs. And I think this is, well, isn't this the kind of person we should be trying to, for example, educate? Or the kind of person that we ourselves, as designers and engineers and UX researchers, whatever we do, isn't this the kind of person we might strive to be? Because this actually asks you not to just do one disciplinary task, but to really take a broader look, to broaden the horizon, to contextualize what we do in the human world. And actually, this is why things like engineering, the humanities, the arts, the social sciences, well, these are not separate things. These are not things that even put back together, because I think they're things that should have never been taken apart. To be a good engineer, you also want to be a good humanist, that you can actually understand the ambiguities and the trickiness of human life. This kind of huge, complicated mess that we call the human experience, but also to find the beauty in things like an artist and to understand the social implications and to be able to think critically through this and then somehow pull in these understandings into the tools that we actually build with technology, right? I think that is kind of this notion of a pie-shaped person from artful design. And, well, all the stuff I've been talking about, I've put into this book. It's a comic book, and it begins in my office, and we look at everything from buildings to school supply, to visual design, to instrument design, from the theremin to AI systems with humans in the loop, to games as more than modes of entertainment, but also of expression and reflection. Just social design, thinking about what it means to design for human connection. And with this, I want to give you one last demo for this presentation. And this is actually from a Smule app back in 2011. So like Ocarina, you can actually, in this case, you sing into the app. You can listen to other people sing from around the world on this globe. But unlike Ocarina, you can also add your voice in a +1 kind of way to the mix. In 2011, in the wake of the earthquake and tsunami disasters in Japan, a woman reached out from Tokyo and with a rendition of the song Lean on Me. And she invited people to join her. In a matter of weeks, 4,000 people around the world from all over the globe, as you can see, converged on Tokyo, in a sense, and added their voice to this virtual choir. This is what it sounds like, about 1,000 people. We all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. So, when design really works, it's the technology that disappears, right? And the hope is that what you have left is something good, because there will be something left after after the technology actually seemingly disappears. And I think the question is, what do we want that to be? And artful design begins and ends with this idea that what we make makes us. The things we create, build, design today, like a boomerang, will come back to actually design us, to shape us as individuals and as communities. And maybe knowing this, we can actually maybe design better for the future. So this, in a nutshell, is what my students and I work on, and also why. And it's something that we sometimes call design for flourishing. And I think the question is one of how, what does it mean to flourish, but also who gets to flourish? Should it be just the few, or can it be the many? If it's the many, can it be more or most? And is there a way that we can strive to help all of us flourish? Now, if that sounds difficult, it is difficult, but that's the work. And that is artful design. I want to thank you very much for listening. And if you want to find out more, there's more at this URL. So stay safe, stay healthy, stay artful.